Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
Oh boy. I am Cole Johnson, and welcome to On the Daily. And Thursday is on tap. And you know what I always do on Thursday? We have a new name for the Washington NFL franchise. That's what I vowed to call the team for the longest. Ever since the show began, I've never called it by the slur it went with, and they went by, even before the name was taken away. But now they have a new name. And I said I would not mention a new name until they actually did come up with one, and now they have one, and it is the Commanders. There was other names on the table that really were better than this one, but because Washington football team, now Washington Commanders, you put your trust in Daniel Snyder yet again. Chill.
We gotta pause that.
Now, there were many names that you could have picked, chosen from out of a slew of them. Some some I can understand why you'd bypass, like the Red Wolves. Some I can understand why you bypass for reasons of PETA nature, like Red Hogs. And the reason why I can understand that being surpassed is simply because, well, you had a team 4 decades ago where the offensive linemen were named the Hogs. And you even had people in the front row of RK Stadium, men, I may add, would dress up in pink picnic dresses with bonnet hats to match, and snouts, pig snouts on their nose. And they would tout the favorite unit of theirs, which was called the Hogs. Peter would be all over Washington for having a team named the Red Hogs. So I understand not the Red Wolves, I understand not the Red Hogs. And I wasn't mentioning those names as, you got to be kidding me. There's other names that are better than the Commanders. The name that I actually thought they would roll with would be the Armada. And the reason why I say that is because I figured that they wanted to have a militaristic nod to the nickname. And I figured, well, have the militaristic nod, and why not be different? You already had your team for 2 seasons be named football team. So you went beyond the norm there. Well, why don't you keep going beyond the norm and be the first franchise in the NFL to not have an S at the end of it? Because with an Armada, you don't need an S. So you would have had a unique nickname where I believe it would have been embraced, and it still would have commanded strength and courage and a unity. And you would still had a nod to the military, and that would have been cool. The Armada would have been cool. Another one, I would say, another one would be Generals. I thought that would have been a nice name to have, but I understand you steer clear from that because, well, you already have a USFL team, and I can actually say have, and not talking past tense as had. You have a USFL team named the New Jersey Generals. So I understand why you would not want to have that name, but still, that would have been a really good one. Another one would have been Admirals. And I say that because if you wanted to have a naval nod, that's another way to go. If you didn't want to go Generals, you can go Admirals. But you decide not to go there either. Washington. I shouldn't even say Washington. I should direct this to Daniel Snyder himself. So you didn't want to go that direction. Okay. You announced this name unveiling in February. In my opinion, if you wanted to put your money where your mouth was, The name that you should have called your team is Redtails. And I know some of you, just in a mere mention of that word or that name, it would probably draw some reaction like this. Okay, after you're done laughing, here's why I say Redtails. This is a unit that in World War II were an escort, was an escort Air Force unit, and it turned into one of the biggest units actually in World War II, and they were all African American pilots. So it would have been a nod to the Tuskegee Airmen, which basically that is what they also were called. It would have been a nod to them. It would have been a nod to them. It would have been a kudos to you for saying, okay, I named the team a racial slur. Well, why don't I embrace one of the most patriotic units to ever serve in the Army? An all-black Air Force unit that fought in World War II and flew successful missions all throughout that time of the conflict. I wouldn't say that you would have erased all the stuff that you've done, Snyder, because I mean, you're still under investigation for a toxic workplace. You still have to deal with that. In fact, your boys, when I mean your boys, I'm talking about your other NFL owners, actually said, you need to step aside and let your wife run the team. That's how bad your workplace has been. To the point where you actually had your president of football operations at the time, in Bruce Allen, be at the center and the maelstrom of the John Gruden letters, which were, I guess you could say, manifestos on redneckism. So, so I understand that your reticence to name the team Redtails, I get it. And you probably thought, well, it's not tough enough. It doesn't have the ring that it should to it. No, that doesn't matter. If you wanted to put your money where your mouth was and you wanted to name your team after something that would erase a lot of the stench that your previous nickname had, then you would have named them that name. But no, you didn't want to name them that. No. Instead, you went with Commanders.
You've got to be joking me.
I really wish I was. And when I saw for the first time, I had to do a double take. I'm like, Commanders?
You for real?
Commanders?
No!
Commanders. All I could think was, you gotta be joking. Really? Commanders. It harkened me to back when I was young, when I had an Atari 2600, and we were playing games like Pong and Asteroid and Pac-Man. I was just waiting for a game back in the early 80s called Commander. Oh my gosh. Commander? Oh Lord. Oh my goodness.
Experiencing technical difficulties, please stand by.
Oh my gosh.
The host needs to collect himself for a moment or two. Please stand by.
Danny, it's not a thing. This is Buck Rogers
The
of the
host
20th
simply
century.
can't believe how people can be such dolts and idiots. Please stand by.
Mini.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming, already in progress.
Woosa. Okay, all right. Let me collect myself for a second. All right, so you named your team after a cheesy type of 80s video game. Well, you know, of course, the internet could not help themselves. And bravo to them because people thought, Commanders? Wait a minute. I could have sworn you said Commodores. And so I saw this picture where all 6 members of the Commodores were put on a Commanders on a Commander's image. And it illustrates it illustrates the ineptitude that Daniel Snyder has run his team. It utterly demonstrates it. And it's sad and it sucks to say it. This is one of the richest franchises, both in lore, in his well, I should say both, in many different directions, in lore, in history, and in money. I mean, I can only think of 2 teams that are richer in the NFL than the Washington football team, now the Commanders. And that would be the Cowboys and the Patriots. I can't think of another team that's richer, that's earned more, and that's worth more than this one. And that is with all of the failings, all of the misgivings, and with many decades of it being called a racial slur. It still is the 3rd richest franchise in the NFL. That should just show how well of a job the previous owner, Jack Kent Cook, did, and just how horrible a job that Daniel Snyder has done, at least in the PR realm. But obviously, he must have some business savvy and sense because the team is still business-wise doing well. And, one of my friends asked, well, if you wanted to be rock hard solid on you weren't changing the name Redskins, Daniel Snyder, why did you? Well, when you have to deal with the cash, you have to deal with the moolah, you have to deal with the skrilla, you have to deal with the money. When Pepsi and Nike and FedEx were saying, you change the name or we change our allegiance. You change the name, we change our affiliation. You change the name or we change backing you. I guess even though the team formerly known as the R Word is profitable, I guess they must not be as profitable as either they're reporting or we think. But hey, they at least have the Commanders to go on. And hopefully they find a way to make this better. But out of all the names that you had, you chose that one. And forever and a day, Daniel Snyder, we're going to have to chill.
We gotta pause that.
Now, I want to know what you think. Do you think that the Commanders actually is a good name and I'm on the wrong in the bad beaten path? Or am I right? Were there other names that should have been selected for the Washington football team other than the Commanders? Like this video and share it throughout your social media community. Comment below because I really do want to hear what you have to say. Don't forget, subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell to get any and all content that comes from here. That is all my time, VIP. I do this for you and I love you for it. For all of us here at Cole Sports, I'm Cole Johnson, and this has been yet another episode of Cole Sports on the Daily. Bye, everybody.